With the allegations of financial scandal hanging on the ministry's humanitarian affairs and poverty alleviation since the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari to the present administration, what can really be done to shield the ministry from this situation? Should the ministry be scrapped totally as being proposed by some Nigerians? Or what systems can be put in place to stop the involvement of cash in the activities of the ministry? Well, we have an associate professor of law, Dr. Sam Amadi, who is also a rights analyst. Very warm evening to Newsnight.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks a lot.
I mean, the malfeasance, the sleaze is just getting stickier and stickier, is it?
Sure, it is, and it can be dubbed as stealing from the poor this time around. I mean, this is, but again, I mean, just to start by saying that the so-called Orese youths are not really a youth wing of Orese Ndibo, so that's very clear. But again, you know, this is two kind of scandals rolled into one. There is the issue of contravention, alleged or arguably contravention of the public financial act, which clearly is strict liability. I mean, you ought not to put public money in private accounts. So it's no longer alleged. The minister admitted that she did it.
And she claimed that it was legal. Legal,
but then it's clear. So you have to, the head of service or whoever should interpret it, and it's very clear. So let's now see if there's a supervening presidential order that gives her the right to do that. Some of our handlers have argued around practices, the gaps in the law. I was chief executive, and I know that once you're in that position in public service, you have to, the financial guidelines are strict liability. They are important because they are the backbone of public finance management. Again, just last month, I was a keynote speaker at the FDB public management seminar for most of the, in Africa actually. The problem has always been failure to follow internal rules. And I have argued that, you know, before you look at oversight of National Assembly or for the General, the internal rules, which
you have an internal auditor.
So the internal rules are the rules that are being flouted often.
And the Director of Finance is, part of these
processes of control.
Yeah.
Then the minister wrote directly to the Accountant General to ask for, in that memo, for the cash to be transferred to a private account. Now, in the first place, the Accountant General has also reported back that they said no, they didn't agree. They said they wouldn't agree because that's totally contravenes procedure. So that's one issue around contravention of process, which I don't know how the minister can lawyer that to say that's a proper thing to do. The second,
wriggle out of this.
The second issue is around this memo talking about, you know, asking for money for flights where there are no
to Kogi State, from Abuja to Kogi. They were going for, you know, another intervention program to distribute cash, but the memo of 60 million
for fund, asks for fund for flight,
200,000 naira each from here to Kogi.
Now this, apart from the fact that this is clearly fraud on the face of it, I mean, there is no airport, and so the idea of requisition in public service, you request for exact what you need. So ESTA codes are well known. That if there are no flight, you can't ask for flight. But look at the bigger picture here. It tells you that efforts to provide for the poor, once it's bureaucratized, you begin to see that a large chunk of that fund is taken by bureaucrats and technocrats. Now, you want to do intervention for 4 or 3 states, okay? And you will have the fund with one person as a coordinator. What's going on here? First, the entitlement should be clear by law and rule who is entitled. The data for who ought to collect it should have been proven, written. And so from the Accountant General's office or a central government portal, you transfer the money to everybody. Even those who don't have bank account, the condition should be that you should open a bank account. So the notion, government is running on inclusivity. So the notion that government will say some people don't have a bank account doesn't make any sense. So that's why some of us have argued that actually the continuous orientation of this kind of ministry is actually a slush fund. Day one. Once government creates that kind of humanitarian department or ministry and funds it for dispatch, It's a slush fund.
But have you forgotten that even the World Bank, you understand, is pushing and releasing some of funds?
But the World Bank does not. Yeah.
No, it's still the same cash payment.
But they don't say. You see, the problem with cash payments is there's no problem. Cash payment does not have to flow from person to person. Cash payment can be transferred again. Look at the point I'm trying to make. These guys are going to travel to establish data. They're going to travel. So why don't you first keep the money and establish proven data? Again, can you create a process where the man who is going to certify who will receive is not the person who dispatches the fund? So there's no reason why the Central Accountant General's Office in Nigeria, for example, cannot be the ones transferring those funds after the director. In fact, this office, the called the ministry, should be disbanded. It should be a unit in the presidency. It shouldn't be a ministry dealing with humanitarian intervention. Now, there are many components of humanitarian intervention. Look at issues like NEMA, dealing with emergencies and issues like that. The cash transfer is a component of humanitarian intervention. There are social work, public work, infrastructure development, even education, healthcare of those who are probably IDPs and those who are displaced from conflict. Those are part of humanitarian work. Now, your job is to deal with policy, and that's the problem. We create more of this as transactions rather than policy. If you ask them to give you the policy supporting government intervention to deal with poverty, this is about poverty. Now, the national budget is a poverty budget. It reinforces poverty because the money goes to the big and the mighty. The social sector, where the poor will benefit, is not properly funded. Policy that will cause redistribution through normal process to the poor is structured against the poor. All the time you allocate 10 billion, 100 billion for the poor. It ends up funding politics and becoming slush fund for technocrats and bureaucrats. So the question then is, when Buhari appointed Sadiya into that position, what are her policy credentials that qualified her for that position, apart from personal relationship?
She was with CPC then. Have you forgotten?
CPC.
She was, I think, the director of finance or something,
so
or treasurer of
is that
CPC.
what we develop anti-poverty strategies, economics, social science research? Now, when they do the stories around certification and all that, let's leave that. What really qualify her? What experience? So if you really mean to deal with poverty, you're going to look for guys who understand the policy linkages, the drivers of poverty. Oxfam give us a roadmap. So look at your budget, look at your policy, look at entitlements, look at labor laws, look at social protections. Have these guys ever produced a policy document providing pathways out of poverty, showing government what to do? So it's all about money. And so that's why in third world country like Nigeria, don't create this kind of honeypots and act to be administered through intervention. So the woman come and tell you, we're going to take 20 billion people now, not up to 6 months. The woman in charge,
Alima Shehu, well, she's saying she even moved the 30 billion
stop it from being stolen.
From being stolen, after 3 billion.
So look at the crisis we're dealing with. We've not even started helping the poor. We're already talking about this, and that's the point I'm making, that you can't bring goat, like I think it was Jonathan or who said goat and yam together. I mean, that was that proverb that politicians and public funds should not have no close proximity. That's the point.
Yes, but what of the eternal check? Approvals, would come. Somebody raises a memo.
Yes.
There is a permanent secretary.
Who is the chief accounting officer?
The chief accounting officer.
Not the minister.
Yeah. How did all this go through and sought approval and the rest?
So these are evidence that suggests that actually there's something not due process and something that is not in public interest. If there was a public interest, the permanent secretary, who is a staff, that's the point.
Yeah.
The reason why permanent secretaries are chief accounting officers, they are civil servants who have skin in the game. They lose their career. A minister can be fired, removed, and that's the end of it. Yeah. So if the minister takes upon herself to ask that 500-something million should be warehoused in the account of a particular coordinator for states. I mean,
and the permanent secretary agrees, now, which is a contravention of the civil service rule.
By now, the president talk about investigation. That's not to investigate. This contravention is on the face of it.
It's very clear, very clear.
What you need now is to say, give her interdiction, explain why she shouldn't be punished, and then deal with her summarily. Look, there's nothing to investigate.
That will still be administrative.
Yes, procedure. So
Okay.
you ask the person, explain why you contravened. And then again, who authorized? There are so many stories around authorization.
Authorization is key here.
Is it the chief of staff who authorized that movement of cash? And if anybody does that, that's a version of the process. And again, you cannot fight in government to control corruption except you are prepared to follow the internal rules. Look, I always tell people that the reason why since the last years I left NEC, nobody has called me is that once the auditor raises a query, I totally sign off. If you follow the rules of the public service and the financial management system, they're not perfect, but they protect 80% of this infrastructure. The problem is that somebody up there, in a shadowy manner, authorizes verbally. I give an example. There was a time we were doing in the electricity sector. We had a fund for subsidy. And the minister said that the president told her that money should be. I said, no, the president has to show me a written approval. Presidential orders are not oral. And
they're not verbal.
You have to. How can the president who issued the order that we're executing now tell you privately the order, which is now a rule, a regulation? He has to show me executive order in writing. So the point here is that the process of public management has been so personalized, and that's recklessness, because people who come to government because of patronage and relationships, they carry that sense into public administration. So now this is a smoking gun. The question is, what would this government do? And this is bad.
Well, the government is, I don't know if you'd call it as being proactive. The Minister of Information, who is the spokesman of the government. That's information management.
Yes,
he has come to say, look, we are government, the presidency is investigating this matter. Nigerians should be patient, and in due course, they will release, the outcome of the investigation.
Well, let's.
But you're stating the obvious that there is a breach already.
It's on the face. There's nothing to investigate. Again, the statement from information is a good information management strategy. Basically, government is probing how, who. There are 3 points here. You have the head of service, you have the secretary to government, you have the attorney general. Now, the president can ask for investigation or explanation, because in my view, not investigation. This doesn't require going to villages and ask to get the money. We're not even talking about whether those funds were properly used. We're talking about infraction of government rules. We're talking about a minister ordering that such sum of money should be paid into a private account, contrary to the financial guidelines. We're talking about even a memo approved to give people interest and allowances that were not earned by virtue of there's no airport. All those things are clear on the face of it. And experience with government investigation, once they say government is investigating, is euphemism for something like, well, this is about to be kicked, off from the radar. But the key point here going forward is that it illustrates 3 things. It shows that we should rethink the notion of this poverty fund. Under Buhari, it was
utilization. How it is this
so we should think another way around how it can be dispersed in a more scientific, probative, and trackable way. And that starts with data. You just can't be talking about poor people or giving poor people money. Who are these poor people?
I'm poor.
So first the data. Let's get the data. If you don't have the data, don't give money. Shut it down, because it's a case of poverty scandal. Number 1, too much poverty, and secondly, stealing from the poor.
Just
in the name of the poor.
It's crazy. Dr. Sam Amadi, information, just reaching us from some of the researches we've done, is that the name Bridget Mojisola, who's
used as
the account where the money was paid into, it does not exist anymore.
I mean,
it is important that the investigators or the administrative investigation must unravel
who is this guy
and who is this person.
I mean, so 2 levels now. Formal infraction, which is wrong for a minister, and then the fact that there's also theft of public funds. So 2 things: possibility that first one is strict liability.
That money must be gone.
So second is this actually a pseudo platform to take out. And don't forget that the woman who was suspended says about 3 billion
had been
stolen in that form, quote unquote. So she has to save this. So this is a big
spread the 30 billion into different.
Let's not leave what it tells us that this is a big scandal. A government that's just 6 months has to deal with this. Buhari dealt with it maybe towards the end of his tenure. Now you're dealing with it at the beginning. So we need to rethink the framework of presidential governance. The chief of staffs, the officers, the aides, they need to rethink how they work. We can't have this kind of, shadowy. They say the print approved, because she said print approved. Now it's coming out that probably there was no such any single approval.
Nigerians have not seen the memo showing the president's approval. Thank you very much, Associate Professor of Law, Arise Analyst, Sam Amadi, for coming.